The Declaration, I of course reread it as I was reading the book, and it has, in a sense, a very lawyerly structure. So the beginning of it, the first part's this general statement of principles, and that is, of course, the most famous half of it. This general statement of natural law governing when people may alter or abolish their form of government. And the second part, by contrast, is much more specific and about facts. And as a lawyer would do, it lays out a sort of standard and then says, and here are how these facts meet that standard. That seems to be the basic structure. We're much more familiar now with that first, more general part, and less familiar with the litany of facts or grievances, which is the second part. But you make a very compelling case that the second part is at least as important and really should be more carefully studied. Now, can you talk a bit about that? What do you find in this list of grievances that is so important and informative today?
You're absolutely right. The second part, the list of grievances or the indictment section against King George III, it is really important to understand this section, and in particular to read it in connection with the preamble. The preamble, the Statement of General Principles section of the Declaration, makes a whole lot more sense if you read it in connection with the list of grievances against King George III.
Yep.
In other words, the fact that he was refusing to give his assent to the legislative bodies, the fact that he was objecting in some cases to legislation authorizing the court system of North Carolina, for example. These are the kinds of things that would deprive them of rights that were theirs. The fact that the king was interfering with their trade and making it impossible for them to survive was also something that reflected back on the fact that, hey, wait a minute, governments are supposed to be here to protect us, to protect our liberties. We have certain liberties not by virtue of some monarch's benevolent bestowal of them, not by virtue of an act of parliament, but we have those rights because we exist. And because God gave them that. God gave those rights to us. And that represented a pretty fundamental shift, one that has been important, certainly, to the success of our system of government.
Yeah, that's a hugely important point. I wonder if you could even say a bit more about that. People think of the Declaration of Independence as a foundational natural law document, and a